The Snow Queen, a tale in 7 stories. 5th story, The Little Robber Girl. The carriage rolled on into a dark forest. Like a blazing torch, it shone in the eyes of some robbers. They could not bear it. "That's gold! That's gold!" they cried. They sprang forward, seized the horses, killed the little postilions, the coachman, and the footman, and dragged little Zelda out of the carriage. "How plump and how tender she looks, just as if she'd been fastened on nuts," cried the old robber woman, who had a long bristly beard and long eyebrows that hung down over her eyes. "She looks like a fat little lamb. What a dainty dish she will be." As she said this, she drew out her dreadful, flashing knife. "Ouch!" the old woman howled. At just that moment, her own little daughter had bitten her ear. The little girl she carried on her back was a wild and reckless creature. "You beastly brat!" her mother exclaimed, but it kept her from using that knife on Zelda. "She shall play with me," said the little robber girl. "She must give me her muff and that pretty dress she wears, and sleep with me in my bed." And she again gave her mother such a bite that the woman hopped and whirled around in pain. All the robbers laughed and shouted, "See how she dances with her brat." "I want to ride in the carriage," the little robber girl said. And ride she did, for she was too spoiled and headstrong for words. She and Zelda climbed into the carriage, and away they drove over the stumps and stones into the forest depths. The little robber girl was no taller than Zelda, but she was stronger and much broader in the shoulders. Her skin was brown, and her eyes, coal-black, almost sad in their expression. She put her arms around Zelda and said, "They shan't kill you unless I get angry with you. I think you must be a princess." "No, I'm not," said little Zelda. And she told about all that had happened to her and how much she cared for little Kay. The robber girl looked at her gravely, gave a little nod of approval, and told her, "Even if I should get angry with you, they shan't kill you, because I'll do it myself." Then she dried Zelda's eyes and stuck her old hands into Zelda's soft, warm mouth. The carriage stopped at last in the courtyard of Robber's castle. The walls of it were cracked from bottom to top. Crows and ravens flew out from every loophole, and bulldogs, huge enough to devour a man, jumped high in the air. But they did not bark, for that was forbidden. A big fire was burned in the middle of the stone-paved, smoky old hall. The smoke of it drifted up to the ceiling, where it had to find its way out. The soup was boiling in the big cauldron, and hares and rabbits were roasting on the spit. "Tonight you shall sleep with me and all my little animals," the robber girl said. After they had something to eat and drink, they went to a corner strewn with rocks and straws. On sticks and perches around the bedding roosted nearly 100 pigeons. They seemed to be asleep, but they stirred just a little when the 2 little girls came near them. "They are all mine," said the little robber girl. She seized the one nearest to her, held it by the legs, and shook it until it flapped its wings. "Kiss it," she cried. and thrust the birds in Cheddar's face. "Those two are the wild rascals," she said, pointing high up the wall to a hole made with wooden sticks. "Rascals of the woods they are, and they could fly away in a minute if they were not locked up. And here is my old sweetheart, Belle," she said, pulling at the horns of a reindeer tethered by a shiny copper ring around his neck. "We have to keep a sharp eye on him, or he will run away from us too. Every single night I tickle his neck with my knife blade, for he is afraid of that." From a hole in the wall, she pulled a long knife and rubbed it against the reindeer's neck. After the poor animal kicked his heels, the robber girl laughed and pulled Cheddar into the bed with her. "Are you going to keep that knife in bed with you?" Cheddar asked and looked at it a little frightened. "I always sleep with my knife," the little robber girl said. "You never can tell what may happen. But let's hear again what you told me about little Kay and why you are wandering through the wide world." Cheddar told the story all over again, while the wild pigeons cooed in their cage overhead and tame pigeons slept. The little robber girl clasped one arm around Cheddar's neck, gripped her knife in the other hand, fell asleep and snored so that one could hear her. But Cheddar could not close her eyes at all. She did not know whether she was to live or whether she was to die. The robbers sat around their fire, singing and drinking, and the old robber woman was turning somersaults. It was a terrible sight for a little girl to see. Then the good pigeon said, "We have seen little Kay. A white hen was carrying his sled, and they sat in the Snow Queen's sleigh. They swooped low over the trees where we lay in our nest. The Snow Queen blew upon us, and all the young pigeons died except us." "What is that you are saying up there?" cried Cheddar. "Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know anything about it?" "She was probably bound for Lapland, where they always have snow and ice. Why don't you ask the reindeer who is tethered beside you?" "Yes, there is ice and snow in that glorious land," the reindeer told her. "You can prance about freely across those great, glittering fields. The Snow Queen has her summer tent there, but her stronghold is a castle up nearer the North Pole on the island called Spitzbergen." "Okay, little Kay," Cheddar sighed. "Lie still," said the robber girl, "or I'll stick my knife in your stomach." In the morning, Cheddar told her all that the golden pigeon had said. The little robber looked quite thoughtful. She nodded her head and exclaimed, "Leave it to me. Do you know where Lapland is?" she asked the reindeer. "Who knows it better than I?" the reindeer said, and his eyes sparkled. "There was I born, there was I bred, and there I kicked my heels in freedom, across the fields of snow." "Listen," the robber girl said to Cheddar. "As you see, all the men are away. Mother is still here, and here she'll stay. But before the morning is over, she will drink out of that big bottle, and then she usually dozes off for a nap. As soon as that happens, I will do you a good turn." She jumped out of bed, rushed over and threw her arms around her mother's neck, pulled off her beard bristles, and said, "Morning, my dear nanny goat." Her mother thumbed her nose until it was red and blue, but all that was done out of pure love. As soon as the mother has tipped up the bottle and dozed up to sleep, the little robber girl ran to the reindeer and said, "I have a good notion to keep you here and tickle you with my sharp knife. You are so funny when I do, but never mind that. I'll untie your rope and help you find your way outside, so that you can run back to Lapland. But you must put your best leg forward and carry this little girl to the Snow Queen Palace, when her playmate is." I suppose you heard what she told me, for she spoke so loud, and you were eavesdropping. The reindeer was so happy that he bounded into the air. The robber girl hoisted little Zelda on his back, carefully tied her in place, and even gave her a little pillow to sit on. "I don't do things halfway," she said. "Here, take back your fur boots, for it's going to be bitter cold. I'll keep your muff because it's such a pretty one. But your fingers mustn't get cold. Here are my mother's big mittens, which will come right up to your elbows. Put them on." "Now, your hands look just like my ugliest mother big paws." And Zelda shed happy tears. "I don't care to see your blubbering," said the little robber girl. "You ought to look pleased now. Here, take these 2 loaves of bread and this ham along, so that you won't starve." When these provisions were tied on the back of the reindeer, the little robber girl opened the door and called in all the big dogs. Then she cut the tether with her knife and said to the reindeer, "Now run, but see that you take good care of the little girl." Zelda waved her big mittens to the little robber girl and said goodbye. Then the reindeer bounded away, over stumps and stones, straight through the great forest, over the swamps, and across the plains, as fast as she could run. The wolves howled, the ravens shrieked, and kershaw, kershaw, the red streaks of light ripped through the heavens with a noise and that sounded like sneezing. "Those are my own northern lights," said the reindeer. "See how they flashed." And on he ran faster than ever by night and day. The loaves were eaten, and the whole ham was eaten, and there they were in Lapland.